All right. Well, welcome today to our day in the life as a program coordinator for an art museum. Today we have Zavia Rudisell. Did I say that correctly?
It's Rudisell.
Rudisell, thank you. And Zavia is a 2018 graduate of UNC Charlotte. She got her bachelor's degree in communication studies with a minor in journalism and a concentration in public relations. During her time at the university, she was heavily involved in the leadership and community engagement office and also frequently volunteered at the Jamil Niner Food Pantry, which is a fabulous resource on campus. Today, she currently serves as the program coordinator for the Beckler Museum of Modern Art here in Charlotte. If you have not gone, I highly recommend. Her primary responsibilities are curating the events that engage its core audience and introduce the museum to new visitors. So please help me welcoming today Zavia to our session. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to hearing what you have to present today.
Great. Awesome. Well, Suzanne, thank you for the introduction and the quick plug for the museum. I'm really excited to be talking to all of you students today and sharing a little bit more about a little bit of my journey at UNC Charlotte, but also what I currently do when it comes to events and working in the arts field. So like you probably heard us discussing before, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just raise your hand and ask them throughout the presentation. I'm more than happy to answer them at any point in time with that. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen if that's okay, Suzanne, and then I'll jump right into it. You guys can tell how long it's been since I've used a PowerPoint slide, so bear with me. Beginning. Cool. Well, step one, be prepared for your presentations. But yes, so I'm gonna just briefly talk more about the day in the life of a museum program coordinator, what all that entails, and the different skills that go into getting into this role. So I know Suzanne talked a little bit more about my resume, I guess, at UNC Charlotte. But again, I graduated in December of 2018. My major was communication studies. My concentration was public relations, and I also minored in journalism. So a lot of different things were happening in what I was studying while I was an undergrad. But lots of transferable skills came out of being a communication studies student that still to this day I utilize in not just my everyday work, but my everyday life as well. Some of my experience from both the university and postgraduate experience, starting off with UNC Charlotte, I was heavily involved with the Office of Leadership and Community Engagement. I did a variety of the leadership programs throughout my 4.5 years at the university, including the lead team, where students are able to learn public speaking and also present different leadership topics and workshops to their peers. I also did the Women's Leadership Development program where during your last year or semester as a student at UNCC, you are given the tools to get you situated for graduation and what's to come after that. And then I also did emerging leaders and just participated in other different workshops that the Office of Leadership and Community Engagement offered. I was also a student coordinator for the Bonner Leaders program. Bonner Leaders is a 4-year, essentially an internship in education program for students as they come in as freshmen. And while I wasn't an actual Bonner Leaders, I was the student coordinator for 2 years with helping getting those students kind of situated and set up for success throughout the program. I was also employed at a lot of different places on campus too. I worked in the Barnes and Noble for a while. I worked in the Student Activity Center for the venue management team. And I also worked in the Cone Center as a summer conference assistant, assisting with all the events that were held there over the summer as well. After I graduated from UNC Charlotte, I did get offered a full-time position at Camp North End. I was able to get that position after interning there during my senior year. While my full-time position at Camp Norton, well, during that position, I was a community experience associate, which is just a fancy way of saying I was their events planner and their venue manager. So any events that happened at Camp Norton, I was the one working with our different rental clients to help plan their logistics and get them in a good spot for their big day. And I also worked with our marketing team at Camp Norton to plan our own events that would get people interested and excited to come visit Camp Norton and support all the businesses there. And currently, I work at the Beckler Museum of Modern Art. My position there is the program coordinator, which again, just another funny or fancy term for venue manager again. So all the events that happen at the Beckler Museum, I play a significant role in them, whether it's working through the logistics and staffing and budgets for the events that the museum hosts for the public, or working with rental clients who want to utilize the museum for a variety of events, whether it's a wedding, a cocktail hour, reception, or just anything else that kind of runs the gamut of things people want to do uptown. A lot of my role also centers on working with our fundraising and development team with helping them put on their fundraising events throughout the year as well. So now I'm sure you're wondering what a program coordinator is and what that means at a museum. I'm sure you guys may have heard program coordinator being used in other careers and other fields and stuff. But when it comes to working at a public place or a place that kind of invites people in, the program coordinator coordinates the programs. The programs include any and all of our museum events. I kind of touched on them a little bit already with the rentals, just standard museum events and our fundraising events. And within that, I do a lot of the creative planning with coming up with the ideas for the events, who we want to bring in, what we want to do, what time of the week works best for us, and all the logistics with that too. So it includes a lot of long-term planning, project management, and then also working closely with other departments throughout the museum team as well. Events are one of the few departments at the museum and at most places where they have an events team, where you really have to rely and be in contact with everybody from top to bottom when it comes to your part-time staff or the support staff on up to the executive level suites when it comes to the direction and visions they have for the organization. So a big part of what a program coordinator does really is just figuring out ways to get everybody on the same page and get them all moving in one direction for whatever programs or events are being put on in the space. And then some of the other skills that come with being a program coordinator, again, the first one is organization. It's hard to plan when you're not organized. Also, again, project management. So understanding how to set the plans and the groundworks and the quote unquote maps for everything and how to get to the finish line. Also, public speaking. We lead as program coordinators lots of meetings when it comes to breaking down the event ideas we have or the plans or even some of the challenges we run into. So being able to explain your ideas and plans is really crucial. And being someone who can be clear and concise with that is very important with getting people bought into your ideas. Also, customer service is a very important thing with us too. Working at a museum, which is about medium size, like the Beckler, you do encounter a lot of our customers and museum guests too. So whether it's just understanding what they're looking for and what events they would like to see, or even having to deal with both the positive and negative feedback is a big skill to have under your belt with that. And then lastly, creative problem solving. Events are one of the things where things can either go really great or really, really not great. And being able to think on your feet and be quick on your feet when it comes to having a couple of backup plans in your back pocket is super, super important, because some things you can control and plan for, but some things like the power going out or there being a hurricane or just anything that could happen that is fully out of your control, being able to have that problem solving and being creative is definitely a crucial skill with that as well. So some of the other things we address kind of beyond just having to think about like our skills, hard and soft skills, but just some of the big things that I always think about when I'm coming in to do my job and think about the direction I need to move in are some of these following questions. One, how are people engaging with public spaces post lockdown or post COVID? We all know how much things have changed since we've dealt with the initial issues and things that came out of the pandemic. But since then, event places worldwide and public spaces worldwide have really been grappling with how do we get people to feel safe in our space? How do we get people to want to come back out of the house instead of just looking at art from behind their screens? Another question is, what do people in general expect from museums? Do they expect just to come in and look at the art? Do they expect to have staff there so they can talk about it and ask questions? What do they want when it comes to events from the museums? And just generally trying to get a good understanding of what the general trends for museum goers are, whether it's just guests who come in one time to pay admission or people who are donating money or spending yearly memberships with us. Then to get a little more specific with the Beckler and what I do at my organization is, what do people already know and expect from the organization specifically? Do people expect the Beckler to be a little more formal, a little more casual, informal, understanding what people already know historically about us and what they want to continue seeing or see change from the Beckler is another thing that is always top of mind for us. The other question is thinking about, how do people find out about our events? Are they going to our social media pages? Are they going to social media pages like Charlotte Axios or Charlotte on the Cheap to find out about different local events? Are they just talking to their friends and asking? Are they walking in just because they see our sign outside? Understanding how people are finding out about us and why they want to find out about us and come see us are crucial and honestly ever changing when it comes to digital, online, in-person, word of mouth. And then lastly, one of the biggest questions that is always kind of in the back of our minds is what's getting in the way of us getting new people to come to the museum, and what can we do as an organization to remove them? It could be simply adjusting our ticket prices for our events. Should they be free? Should they be a lower cost? Should they be a higher cost? Are there things kind of outside of the museum that are affecting that too, whether it's the perception of the museum or even the perception of the area, with it being uptown and feeling like uptown is hard to get to, parking is expensive, and really understanding the ways that we as an organization can either remove those barriers or kind of incentivize or give reasons that the barriers really shouldn't get in their way with that. So now that I'm done talking about what I do and some of the things that are top of mind, I do want to give you all a little bit of advice when it comes to your professional journeys and whenever you guys are either starting or already in the middle of your professional journeys. So the first thing is to simply take advantage of the resources and organizations on campus. As you have seen from my bio alone, I definitely took advantage of a lot of those resources already. I was super involved, and I went to different events, whether it was networking or career center events or what have you, just really getting my name out there, and then also being open to learning new things about the different careers and pathways I could take. Next one is just broadening your intern and job search. Beyond just looking for, if you want to be a program coordinator, aside from just typing in program coordinator to LinkedIn or your job search, figure out what other terms are being used for similar roles. Again, people would call me an event planner in one place, a program planner in another place, a venue manager somewhere else. So just always staying on top of the new titles and terms for the roles or jobs you're looking for, as well as the transferable skills for the jobs and roles you're looking for. Of course, just getting active or staying active on LinkedIn. When I first started college, LinkedIn was still kind of a new thing for us. And if you would have told me that LinkedIn would have still been really been more important like 8 years later, I wouldn't have believed you. But now I know, and I can tell you that just being active on LinkedIn really helps kind of keep your name and your skills and what you can offer out there, because anyone could easily type in your name, go to your LinkedIn, and see how involved or how much experience you have at the click of a mouse. So always having that updated, like you would always update your resume, is super important. And then lastly, just simply telling people you're looking for opportunities. I didn't get my internship by applying for it for my Camp Norton internship. I was telling one of my organization advisors that I was looking for an internship and I was having trouble finding one and getting the role even after interviewing at dozens of places. And I told him he's recommended me for the internship at Camp Norton and I was able to get it. So that alone really proved to me and showed me that beyond just doing the basics of applying and hoping for the best, letting people know, the people in your network know that you're actively looking really helps you and helps them know, okay, this person is looking for a role like this. I'll keep my eye out for something that could be a good fit. And honestly, you would never know what's out there unless you continue putting it out there, letting people know that you're looking for support and help with finding those opportunities. So that's it for my presentation. I do have a little screenshot of my LinkedIn if you want to stay connected with me, just my first and last name on LinkedIn, and we can definitely continue the conversation there and stay in touch after this talk. But I believe now we're going to open the floor for any questions or comments or anything like that. So please feel free to jump in if you have anything you want to ask.
I'll go ahead and break the ice and then anyone else, please jump in. But tell us more about why arts? Why did you decide to pursue a position in a museum? And kind of what that process was of getting your foot in the door, because I know museum work can be very competitive. So kind of how did you make that leap from Camp North End into the museum world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will, and I'm sure you saw this in my actual resume with what I majored in. I do not have a formal education in the arts. I just love the arts, right? And I ended up getting into the museum at the Beckler Museum just by looking for positions that still aligned with what my skill set was, which was events. I left Camp North End and was looking for something different, something a little more my speed at the time. The Beckler just so happened to be hiring somebody with a similar role. Again, I didn't even realize calling it a program coordinator for an events person was a thing. So I just looked at the transferable skills and what they were looking for. It aligned with what I could do and what I could bring to the museum. I applied, hope for the best, and I was able to get in. It really does kind of attest to just being really flexible with your skills and being able to make your case with why your skills are important and why you're the best person for the job, because there were several people who did have arts backgrounds as well and then also could do events too, but with just my specific skill set and the way I sold myself to the employer, that's what got me into it. So
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
So I'm also a communications and PR concentration. So do you have any like advice going into that? Because I'm like the pre-com right now, so next semester I'll be actually taking the core classes. Because I also want to go in the arts because I was like to be like the more tactical side of it, but I still want to work in that industry. So do you have any advice to getting those experiences or getting those skills?
Yes, for sure. So awesome to hear that you have that concentration as well. So one piece of advice I'll start with is since you're looking for experience in the arts in particular, whether I'm assuming it would either be like at a theater company or a performing arts company or something like that, I would recommend just looking into what roles and internships they have that are particularly surround production management and or event management, because of course with those roles or at those places they always need a production manager for the or the stage manager, right? And with that it still has those same level of organizational skills with like coordinating the staff, coordinating the schedules, and making sure everyone's where they belong and where they need to be on time. So I would definitely look into more back of house stuff when it comes to performing arts. Some places do also have like legitimate like roles that are focused on events as well. So definitely look for those too. But if you can't find those, I would definitely look into the production side of that to kind of start building up those transferable skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I'll ask another question as everyone's thinking. But what are some challenges that you face in your role, and how do you overcome some of those challenges?
Yes. So one of the challenges I face, um, and I don't want it to sound like horrible because it's really not horrible, but it is still a challenge regardless, is I'm one of the youngest people on our full-time staff. Actually, I think I am the youngest person on our full-time staff, and it's by a large gap too. So it's not like I'm 28 and I have coworkers who are like 30 or something. Like there's a very large age gap and generational gap. And while there is that level of mutual respect between myself and my coworkers, there is always that little challenge of me just simply being underestimated because I'm a little younger and may not have a decade or two of experience compared to some of my other colleagues with that. So with that challenge really just comes, number one, me just always being over-prepared and kind of just always ready to be kind of ready to like kind of make my case. And I hate to say defend myself, but to like kind of make my case and kind of legitimize my ideas and kind of push a lot harder and kind of fight a lot harder to get my projects to where I want them to be. And so far, everything has gone well with it. I've been able to kind of back myself up with kind of like the stats and everything to back me up. And I think also just being good at like analyzing data and kind of having data on my side really helps too, because if they don't believe you when you qualify your reasoning behind it, the quantitative data, the numbers will always be there, and those tend to not lie. So
No, that's great. Thank you. I don't know if you know much about the internship programs available at the Beckler or just other volunteer opportunities, but if you would like to speak to that, feel free.
oh my gosh, absolutely. So we do have a very, I guess active is the word, active internship program. We actually have an intern from UNC Charlotte currently working at the museum. We actually have a very strong partnership relationship with UNC Charlotte, particularly with the College of Arts and Architecture. So a lot of our interns come directly through that partnership with that campus department, but we're open to interns from any kind of any field or any study or concentration or what have you. And while the internships, unfortunately, right now, tend to be unpaid, we do of course, offer academic credit with that and kind of do other things and have other benefits and perks to kind of make up for that until we're in the space to be able to have a paid internship. But we do have interns every semester. Some interns do good enough work to where we'll extend their internships and even offer part-time jobs and full-time jobs as well. And many of our interns over time have since gone on to work in curatorial work or arts work at other local museums as well. So if you can get in at the Beckler, you're able to kind of get in at other museums here locally in Charlotte, but kind of throughout the nation as well.
That's great. Thank you. Let's see here. Zoe wants to know, how does the process of coming up with an event, what does that look like? And I don't know, Zoe, if you meant like how are you creating these from scratch? Are you, piggybacking on former events that have gone well? And maybe even talk about not just the process, talk about the process, but also like how many events are you doing every year?
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, Zoe said yes to all that. I'll start with how many events. So I would say at the Beckler, we do about 4 or 5 events a month. So 5 times 12 is what, 60? So about 60 events. And some of our months are much busier than others, just depending on what we have going on or what things we're looking for. But the 60 a year compared to the 300 I was doing at Kip Norton is very different. So it really does depend on the venue or the organization you're working with, because again, at Kip Norton, we did about 300 a year, which is insane to say out loud. But also Camp Norton is a much bigger place as well. So I do think it's pretty easy to find a place or a venue when it comes to events that kind of matches whatever speed you're looking for and whatever type of, what's the word I'm looking for? But yeah, I think speed's the best way, like the type of speed you're looking for. But when it comes to the process of coming up with an event, there's a lot of different ways to start. Sometimes we do an event because someone from our leadership simply says, hey, we need to do an event. Like, for example, one thing we're working on now is building back up our young adult involvement when it comes to membership and that fundraising. So that was literally just something that my boss said, hey, we need to start doing events to bring these people in. So start planning. Sometimes it'll just be I have a random idea based on something I saw at another museum or another need that the museum is looking for. And I'm like, okay, what can we do to address that need? And then other times it really is just based on like previous events that we've done that have been successful. And then for whatever reason, they may have stopped. So part of that is understanding why we stopped it. Do we even really want to bring it back? And if so, what will we do differently? And what will we do to kind of maintain what people were looking for back then? So that's how we start. And then I won't go too far into like the rest of the process. But once everyone at the museum is kind of on the same page, about what the event should be and what it should look like. From there, I essentially start working backwards from it. So using the young adult thing again, if my boss says, hey, we want to do a young event, young professionals cocktail event. Okay, great. So if a cocktail event, my brain starts unpacking all the things that are needed for a cocktail event. Number one, the cocktails. Where are we getting those cocktails from? We need to place orders for those beverages. We'll need food as well, placing order for the food, decor, how much furniture, how many chairs, tables, where are they going to do it at, the location. Also, the staffing. We need caterers, bartenders, our staff from the museum to greet people, and then just kind of going through that checklist of making sure that everything and every person that needs to be at the event and present is accounted for. And if it's not accounted for, figuring out how to get that in line with that. So
That's great. It sounds like a lot of work. All those details. I bet you have loads of spreadsheets.
oh my
Uh,
gosh, so many, so many.
any other questions from all of you? I could ask Zavia questions all day, but I want to make sure you get your questions answered as they're thinking. Do you have a favorite artist currently exhibiting in the Beckler?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. And you can probably see me how I lit up. So we currently have a fourth floor a new exhibition on our fourth floor. That's the right words. A new exhibition on our fourth floor. It's a solo show by a living artist, Claire Rojas. For those who may not know about the Beckler, most of our collection is made up of artists from like the late 1800s to the like 1970s or so. So most of those people are no longer living. So it's really cool when we get to bring in living artists, contemporary artists, and kind of have some more modern and relevant work in our space. So we have a living artist, Claire Rojas, up on the fourth floor. There's about 97 of her works up there in that gallery. And she really focuses on a lot of really interesting things when it comes to kind of acceptance, her life challenges, mental health, and they're all like a lot of like kind of heavy subjects. She kind of does it in like a lighthearted way. So you don't leave the exhibition like feeling sad about everything, but you do kind of like see that silver lining surrounding it too. So it's really been touching and really exciting and just really vibrant with all the different colors and stuff. So that's the thing I'm most excited about. And I really wish it wasn't leaving in January, but you know, we have to make room for other things too.
I have another question.
Sure,
So
yeah.
is working in a museum like nonprofit?
It depends on the museum, but the Beckler Museum itself is a nonprofit. So yes, I do work for a nonprofit.
And how is that? Because I know it can be different working with a nonprofit and with corporate organizations.
Yes, so that is another thing that was a 180 between what I do now and what I used to do at Camp North End. Camp North End, a lot of people think it's like a government owned, like a city owned thing. It is not. It is a private company, for profit company for sure. But yeah, so it was definitely a little bit of a culture shock for me, going from a little more of a corporate e space. And I will say at the Beckler in particular, even though it operates as a corporate place with like our attire and kind of how we interact with each other and our guests. But when it comes to like nonprofit and kind of the revenue aspect of it, it was definitely different because I kept Northern. There was, it felt like, even though of course ours never is, an unlimited budget, and we had a lot of resources to work with, opposed to at a nonprofit, there's very limited resources for us to work with, and a lot of our resources and budgeting comes from not just our members, which of course we have to make sure we have members to have money from those members, but also really making sure that our budgets are tightened up. And then also it relies a lot on grants as well. So it's a little different compared to just getting up and saying, oh, hey, Cam Norton, we have some money. We're good. So it definitely made me a little more cognizant of the money and resources being spent, both like financially, but also like with our staff too, and understanding that people's time is also not indispensable like I felt like it was at my other job too. So.
Zoe has another question in the chat. Are you getting to work directly with other areas of the museum staff, or is it more so through the grapevine kind of communication?
Wonderful question. So the answer is yes, I do get to interact with all of the staff. Give me one second. I'm gonna take a sip of my water. Sorry. But yes, and I think it's that way, nothing. It's that way because the museum, the Beckler Museum in particular, is such a small team, has such a small staff. I like to kind of compare it to the Mint Museum. The Mint Museum is huge in space, but also just huge in staff too. Like I'm sure they operate more like, I don't know, Bank of America or something with like, there's whole departments of people that may not talk to each other. But at the Beckler Museum, there's only about 20 of us on our entire staff between full-time and part-time. So we literally running to each other every day when we're in the office, and all of the questions and different things we have to work together on. There's no way for us to kind of move past them, or we're not able to kind of like move through our project without talking to each other face to face and directly. And it also has taught me, working with a small team, how to understand different people's types of communication types, right? Some people work best with just a quick impromptu face-to-face meeting with, hey, I've been dealing with this. I have this question for you. Can you answer it right now? Right? Some people prefer doing it in an email chain. Some like phone calls. Some work remotely and you can only talk to them via email or on a Zoom or something. So while it is a small team, there still is that level of having to communicate in a lot of different ways with that small team. And instead of it being kind of like, I told this person and they told that person, it's kind of the expectation for whatever you're looking for to come from you versus it coming from somebody else. So.
That was a great question. I'm going to ask about like mobility within the museum space. So, you're in, this event planning type of position. Once you are in that position for, multiple years, is there, availability in the museum space to move around a little bit to, try different types of positions, given your skill set and your interests, or what is that like? Is it a very much a hierarchy, or is there, movement that you can make within the space?
Yeah, so I would say there's movement. The hierarchy is still kind of being reworked, just because this museum in particular, the Beckler in particular, went through a lot of organizational changes during and after the initial fallout of the pandemic since 2020. So that is still being worked out amongst itself as well. So previously there would have been a lot more of a hierarchy, but currently things have been dwindled down a little bit more. However, there is a lot of movement. One of my coworkers in particular, she started working at the museum as an intern. And after being an intern, she came on part-time as one of our gallery attendants. And then after being there for a while, she was like, I feel like I could do something else. You guys need help in this department. I'm happy to help in this department. And she was able to work her way up to being the assistant director of our marketing team in like the past like 5 or 6 years or so. So there is that level of movement. And again, with the Beckler being the size that it is right now, I think it's easier to kind of not fall into, but have those higher positions kind of created for you to where it's like there didn't used to be an assistant director of marketing or someone who focused on digital marketing, but the need came up. Somebody who already worked there was able to do it and filled that role. So lots of positions and lots of room to make movement and kind of have positions kind of higher positions kind of built for you. But currently there really isn't like a set hierarchy right now. And again, it's really unique to the Beckler. So other museums probably do have a more traditional sense of how you move up and upward mobility in that sense. But at the Beckler, it's been a little almost like a startup at this point. We're kind of operating like a startup.
No, that's great. Thank you. Any other questions from any of the students on the call? All right. I could talk to you all day.
I'm happy to keep
But I
yapping away
won't.
too.
No, I would love to chat with you another time. I think I met you when we came for our career trek. I think it was maybe a year or two ago. We brought
Oh my
students
goodness. Yes, that is
into the
exactly
Beckler.
it.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that's where I've met you before. So it's good to see you again.
for sure.
Any final tips, just advice for students who are wanting to get their foot in the door of a museum?
Yes. So I mean, I would not advise you not to study the arts like I didn't do, like I did. But even if you aren't academically focused on the arts, just anything that you can do in your extracurriculars, campus involvement, or community involvement that still keeps you kind of in tune with the arts, whatever it may be. So if it's volunteering at an art gallery, becoming a docent at a museum, volunteering at a theater company or with Blumenthal or what have you, just kind of staying in the know in your free time too is just as valuable as pursuing it academically as well. And that can also give you a leg up and get you that foot in the door with working in the arts. And then also, if you do want to pursue postgraduate stuff too with the arts, I recommend it as well. Again, I don't have it, but if I could go back and do it again, I would, just so I could be a little more, what's the word? Traditionally in the know of different art and what modern art even is, because I did a lot of learning in this past 2 years at the Beckler with that. And then lastly, again, just really keep your options open, right? I never would have thought I'd be working at a museum, but here I am 2 years later, and I genuinely enjoy it and love it. So just kind of keeping your options open to whatever your skills are and whatever your kind of core values are. And then I feel like any position that you're looking for, the right one will open up for you and you'll find yourself in it. So,
Well, thank you so much for being here today. This has been extremely helpful. I always love to hear about individuals who work in museums and just their very unique niche areas and their skill sets. So thank you so much for sharing this with us
of
today.
course. Yes, thank you all for giving me some of your time today and listening to me yap for a little bit. And Suzanne, thank you for the opportunity to chat with everyone today. It's been great, for sure.